Welcome to Femme Parler Podcast, where we are unpacking opinions and changing destinations. I am your host, Shirley Altador, where each week we will chat about how to rise strong out of all types of obstacles that come with relationships. Through personal life experiences and discussions ranging from infidelity, trust, forgiveness, sex, heartbreak, self-love, and so much more. I am passionate and obsessed to provide guidance to every woman to create a better life. Let's dive in, pull up a seat, make sure you're cozy, and get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn. With me, your virtual girlfriend. Welcome back to another episode of Femme Parler Podcast. Today we have a guest with us today. Her name is Tabetha. She is a mental health professional who has been working in the field for over 14 years. She enjoys making a difference in people's lives. She lives in New Jersey, was born and raised. She is the owner of Sacred Cherry Beauty, a small vegan soap company created during the pandemic in June 2021. Also, bonus about Tabetha is Tabetha and I have known each other for quite some time. We went to preschool together, and then we segued into an after-school program called Project Smile and Upward Bound that we attended together. And of course, as you all know, life takes over. So sometimes it just separates you from people. But every so often we are able to reconnect in some way, shape, or form. So Tabetha, I'm going to pass you the mic to introduce you to everybody and those who really, truly don't know you.
Yes, thank you so very much. So, I am Tabitha, and my story is I am a product of a single mother, and I do have an older brother. I was born and raised in Trenton, New Jersey, and I want to share my personal experience with being always in some sort of competition with my brother um, from, just my mother's perspective or how I perceive her perspective. Um, I graduated with a bachelor's in political science in 2015. And me and my mother were very close. We are still somewhat very close, but some things have taken place. I've gotten married, divorced, which kind of put a wedge in me and my mother's relationship at the time. And there was a lot of friction between me and her. She never attended the wedding um, because of her own personal beliefs about me and marriage. Um, she is just someone I definitely look up to, but when she speaks about accomplishments, she never mentions me. She always mentions my brother, who, not taking away his own shine, has not accomplished as much as I have. Um, so,
I'm sorry I had to
no, it's
laugh because,
okay.
as y'all know, I do know Tabitha, so I understand exactly where she's coming from. But just so we can scale back so you guys can catch up, I do recall your mother. I don't know your mother personally, but I remember the visual person and the short little periods of time that I interacted with her. That woman
Yes.
was very stern and strong and just straight to the point. I mean, Tabitha, even when you got pregnant and you weren't even
Yes.
young. You got pregnant at
19.
19. I mean, you were
Yes.
young. I'm not going to say, but you were out of high school. I was
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I can't
Hmm.
believe with a mom like that. And now the girl's pregnant. I was shocked at first, but
Yes. Yes. I think you mentioned that. That's so funny because I thought about that earlier today. The strict mother
uh-huh.
persona can either result in in two different things. It can either be the child going in the right way, but not trusting a lot of people, and not having a realistic view on the world. And then it can go the other way with the child just rebelling in every way necessary because of the strictness and the stern upbringing. So, with my personal experience with my mother, I can say I did a little of both. I went the right way, got the college degree, got my own place, moved out, did what any parent would want their child to do. But yes, I had a child a little bit before I was mature enough mentally to handle it on my own. And um, she pretty much was very disappointed. She was not as supportive as a mother should have been during those times. As far as finances and making sure I was going to the doctor on time and, the objective things, she was there. But when it came to emotional support and motherly, maternal support,
Mm-hmm.
I can say I've never experienced that from her. Um, Not just during my pregnancy, but all throughout my childhood and my young adulthood, even until now, unfortunately. But I love her. And I say those things because lately I've been healing on my own. I haven't really sought out therapy yet, but it's a thought that's been in my mind to do, um, and I'm working my way towards going. But I thought about the way she would discipline me and my brother, both just
Mm-hmm.
very strict, very stern, on the borderline of abuse.
Would
But
you say so? Okay, so wait, let me
yes,
scale back. Okay. So first, does your brother have any children?
no,
Last I known, and we're not going to say his name, for those of you who know Tabitha, know who her brother is, but we're not interviewing her brother, so certain things will stay disclosed. But he has no children, and has he accomplished what you have accomplished? What I mean by that, does he have a bachelor's?
no, he does not
He
have a
doesn't.
college
Is he the
degree.
same individual I knew since we last talked that's really up to nothing, pretty much?
Even yes, he is a
Okay.
raging. He sadly, and I like to also touch on mental health because sadly he is a an alcoholic now.
And that doesn't surprise me. And I'm going to tell you now, which I probably never told you before. I
No,
mean,
it's
the
fine.
brother I knew when we were younger, he just looked depressed, sad, and just remember I used to ask you, like,
Yes, like what's
who's
wrong
fucking
with
him?
him?
What's wrong with him? Like, I
No,
used to be like real
you
mean,
were.
some of the things
No,
I
I
used to
never I
say.
never took it as mean. I just thought it was just just
I know.
inquiring and being inquisitive. That's how you always were. And I appreciate that because you showed me a different side of womanhood at that young age. And it's
Thank
okay
you.
to voice yourself. It's okay to say quirky things and, seem a little out of
Out of
touch,
ordinary,
but in
out
a
of touch.
way,
Yeah.
but in a good way, and it really did help me, and you were
Okay.
great with that.
Good,
So
good. I'm
I
glad
never
to
took
hear.
offense.
Okay, very good. Very good.
Yes,
But now let's touch on you said borderline abuse because my parents were
yes.
strict as well. Very strict.
Mhm.
Now, mind you, my first child, so my first living child, I
Okay.
was 23 when I got pregnant. She was 24, but I did get pregnant at 16. And then the child would have been born when I was 17, and I aborted that pregnancy. So
I remember.
I know what
Mhm.
it means, young pregnancy. Granted, I didn't have the child, but I get what it means to have a child at a young age. And with all the pressure I was receiving,
Mm.
both from the father and my own mother, I had to make the decision that the stress that I was about to endure, I didn't want to endure. So I chose to abort the pregnancy. But let's touch on, you said borderline abuse. Why do you feel as though her strictness was borderline abuse? Do you think that's just
Okay.
teenage thinking?
No, I do not believe so. I witnessed the physical abuse that she inflicted on my brother, which was very out of the ordinary for parenting um, these days, you know,
Mhm.
with all these support systems and things of that
Mhm.
sort. We didn't have that in the early 90s growing up. So, my mother was a single mother. She had a lot. And now, just learning now, being a mother myself and on becoming a grandmother, I'm starting to see okay, there were traumatic childhood issues or traumatic things that she has dealt with or had dealt with that she never faced and confronted. So she took that out on her children. I
Mm.
That's my personal belief about
How old was
it.
she when she had your brother?
She was early 30s when she had my brother. I think she was 30 or 31.
Oh, okay, so she was much older, and I think you had told me that
Yes.
because your mom did always look older, and I think you
Hmm.
had disclosed that to me, and I probably did forget. So she was much
That's
older
okay.
when she had a child, but she was still
Hmm.
a single
Mentally,
parent.
yes. And mentally not 30. I've learned
Really?
that, yes, I've learned that through some sources from the family that
Okay.
mentally, with her upbringing, she was not on the thinking level of a 30-year-old woman when she was 30. She was very shielded and protected herself. My grandparents were very strict and very super religious. My grandmother, especially, not so much my grandfather, but he kind of let my grandmother raise the children, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
old fashioned way of house bringing. But she was not allowed to experience life like normal people, I would say.
I know
I
what you
don't
mean
know.
by healthy because back then it was strict. And
Yes.
our grandparents didn't know. I feel like there's no right or wrong to this, okay?
Hmm.
And our grandparents and our great grandparents and our parents have done the best that they could. So we're
Yes.
not bashing them, but there's always another way to handle things. And some of that strict upbringing, when you
Hmm.
really take a closer look at it, how was it truly beneficial at times in certain situations? So I get what you're saying. I totally
Hmm.
understand what you're saying. I can
Hmm.
relate because we both had strict upbringings and my parents had
Yes.
strict upbringings. So I get where your mom's coming from,
Yes. Yes.
especially, I talked about one point where it's like when you say your mom was 30, but she wasn't mentally acting as though she was 30. Probably because sex was probably something that was never talked about. Having a boyfriend was probably looked at as completely wrong. And then when you
Yes.
sit and think about those things, okay, so when is sex okay to talk about? When is me having a boyfriend okay to talk about? When is me going into adulthood a conversation that needs to be started once I'm an adult? That to
Yes.
me, that's like crazy. To me, as funny as it sounds, it's like waiting till you're 80 to finally put lotion on your body because you just didn't feel like doing it in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or 60s. Now, I know this
Right.
is extreme and I know it's a little comedy to it, but when is a good time for me to talk? Like, you got to start
Yes.
talking to me about sometime. Even certain things as your period. Back in the day,
Yes.
you ain't talk about that. That was not my
Hmm.
business. We ain't talk about that. We ain't going to discuss that. But how am I supposed to get
To
help and
learn.
answers and learn and understand the female body?
Hmm.
So that's why I'm saying they didn't know what was a healthy strictness and an unhealthy strictness. Because
Yes.
something as simple as your period was something that was not discussed back in the day. That was private information and you ain't discussed that. And we ain't even going to get into sex.
Nope. And with that being said, I was afraid to talk to my mother about everything.
Same here.
You
Same
know.
here. Same
So
here.
I learned from that and tried my very best to break that generational curse.
Mhm.
And my daughter, thank God, talks to me about mostly everything, more than
Mhm.
what I talked to my mother about, more than what I was comfortable bringing up to my mother. So I try to make a difference in her life, knowing how it feels
Mhm.
to not have a voice, to not have a voice. And um, my mother made it very clear that her voice was the only voice in her home.
A
Um,
dictatorship. It wasn't a
yes, of
democracy.
course. Yes, yes. She was a sergeant in the military for 25 plus years. So
I
we
remember. I
we
remember she came pick you up at times in her uniform.
yes, yes. And it's so funny. I brought up this conversation to my cousin a couple years ago, and back to the expectations. I got a little upset. It hurt me because I would tell my mother, "Oh, I'm doing this," or "My graduation's this day," or "I'm getting married," or good things you would think, and she would say, "Well, your brother did it this way," or "Your brother did that," or things that he may have started but never finished, which is okay. We all start things and never finish, but I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about me. And I brought this up to my cousin and I said to her, "Why is it that every time it's something related to me, my mom always diverts it to my brother? Like I don't even exist. Like even to a baby crib." We went shopping yesterday looking at baby cribs, and she caught herself because the particular crib was a certain style. And she was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, your brother had one of these." And I'm thinking to myself, so I didn't have a crib. I was just laying on the floor, I guess. It's
So
like that. It's like that
you've
with
never asked her?
everything. No, I've never had the balls to
Is
ask
there a
her yet.
traumatic experience with your pregnancy?
Yes. With my pregnancy, the trauma
No, yeah,
behind
with your mother being pregnant with you, I should say, if I said that wrong.
now, I don't know the full story, but from my cousin, when I told her about my mom always bringing my brother up, like I never had a story or a beginning. When my mother joined the military, I was only less than 1 years old. I think
Hmm.
I was one or less than 1 years old, and she would leave us with family members and friends of the family. So these are the people that raised me. My brother was 3 when she went away, so she
Hmm.
had 3 good solid years with my brother, as opposed to me being, I don't remember my exact age when she went into active duty, but I know I was either one or less than one. Um,
Okay, so you were quite young when she
Very young,
separated. So who
very
really
young.
raised you? Like
Uh,
between aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpa, cousins, the family made
Now,
it work?
I can say my first very traumatic experience was with a close family friend who took me and my brother in. She was a child care provider and she had teenage kids herself.
Hmm.
Um, with this being one of the places my mom trusted to leave us, I was molested there by the
By
teenage
the
daughter.
teenage daughter?
Daughter, yes. To this day, nobody knows. And she comes to family functions, she comes to cookouts, and
And you
it's.
speak to her?
I do speak to her. It's a secret. Nobody knows but me and her.
No one
Even to
knows
this
but you and
day, this is
her.
the
And
first time I'm sharing it with someone other than my daughter.
how are you with her? Is it just like y'all just treat it like nothing never happened?
Yes, but I know it happened. She knows it happened. It's
And you
very
have never spoken to her,
strange.
like as an adult, you've never
No,
taken her to the side and wanted to
no,
speak to her and ask her the why.
no, I haven't. And I think that's something I've been pondering for years now, going to therapy. I've been trying to do this thing on my own,
I
meditating and
got you.
God and everything, but sometimes you need help. But that was my first traumatic experience. My mom would leave us with people she trusted,
Hmm.
but they weren't very much trustworthy.
It's hard. I can
Hmm.
definitely tell you it is hard when you have to work and make a living when you're not a stay at home mom and you have to depend on other people to watch your children. It is
Hmm.
extremely hard because now you're trusting that person with your child.
Yes.
I remember when I had my daughter, I was very strict, did not want anybody watching her that I did not know of. That's one of the reasons why um, Khalif's aunt was the one who was primarily the caregiver for the children. My mother was the piggyback because his aunt is strict, but strict in a healthy way. I like her strict, and you knew who was coming out her home. She didn't have any unexpected visitors, and that lady don't play.
Right.
And I like that because I don't know who is coming out of your home. Now, when my mother in law would watch the kids, I didn't have a problem with my mother in law watching the kids, but it's the inconsistent places that I drop my child off here and I pick up my child in section C, drop my child in location A, pick up my child in location B. And I was very upset about that. And I had to finally tell him, like, this makes me uncomfortable. I am not happy. And then when you go pick the child up, I'm hearing, oh, this is a family member. I don't give a fuck who this is. I don't
I
know
don't
who this
know.
is. I
Right.
don't care who this is.
Mm-hmm.
This is not someone I consistently interact with. And shit, we already know that don't mean nothing because normally the
Right.
person who's abusing you is someone who is close to you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who these people are in this home. I've never been to this place. What is this place to me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why his aunt was ended up being the primary caregiver because her home was controlled. I knew who was. We all knew who was going in and out. And there was no unexpected visitors, and she controlled the situation. So I get what you're saying. Like, it's hard when you're a
Mm-hmm.
mother, and that's the scary part
It
of
is.
childcare and finding someone suitable and respectable. Shit, even nowadays
Yes.
when I hear parents doing mean
Yes.
things to their children,
Yes.
it's absolutely freaking awful.
Yes. You can't put
So,
anything past anyone but yourself. You
no,
know,
you
and it,
can't.
and it's sad. It's sad.
It is. It is.
Yes.
So now that was your first trip. Did you ever tell? Oh no, you said you didn't tell nobody.
Nobody
This is the
knows.
first, other than your daughter. This is the first time now you're
Mm-hmm.
actually talking
Speaking
about it
out.
and speaking out about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, hopefully, mom don't listen to this because then mom's gonna have you will have
Uh,
questions.
she may. She may, but she
Say
knows
that
of
again. She
she
may.
may hear it and she may have questions, and that's okay.
Okay.
I'm okay and I'm willing to answer them.
And you're ready.
I'm
Good.
ready. And to be
Okay.
honest, that was not the last person who took advantage of me. And my
So there's been
mom,
others after
mhm,
this person. So how old were
one
you when
other.
this person was taking advantage of you?
The teenage daughter of the childcare provider.
Yeah.
I was less than 1 years old. I see pictures. I've
And how
actually,
long did it continue that you remembered?
I don't remember how long
How do
it
you know?
continued, but
So
it
I
was
have to
more than
ask,
once.
how do you know you were okay? How do you know it was when you were less than one? And how do you remember this?
It was a traumatic experience. And with trauma, it kind of attaches to your subconscious. I do remember her touching me down there.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember that. I do remember it being in her bedroom. Um, there was other children around, but they were like playing. Her mom was so busy, so she wasn't
Mm-hmm.
able to watch everything at every
Mm-hmm.
moment. I do remember it, not vividly, but I do remember it.
Gotcha.
And I was looking at pictures a couple of years ago. Me and my mom sat down and opened up the old photo albums, and there was pictures of me on at that woman's house. And if I show you these pictures today, you will see something was going on with me. And I was only like
Mm,
1 years old, sitting on the floor and looking at the camera. You could see in my eyes, my whole face, something was
that something
not
wasn't right.
right. Yes.
So it continued up until, would you say, how old with the teenage daughter?
I think she was about 11 when she started it. She wasn't an older teenager. She was
Oh,
kind
she
of
was
young.
young.
Yeah.
Okay, doing
Yeah.
this.
Mhm.
And how old were you until it stopped? Was it until you stopped going to this person's
Um,
house?
I won't say that because I don't really remember the exact time it stopped, and I don't remember how
Mm-hmm.
long my mom had us with that caretaker.
Mm-hmm.
But it was probably within months to a year.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. So now you were taken advantage of again. And
Yes.
who was it this time and how old were you?
It was my mother's boyfriend, one of her boyfriends, and I was between 6 and 8 years old. So I want to say I
So
was about 7 years old.
now the boyfriend was watching you guys when you guys went to work, when she went
And
to
my
work.
mom went to work. Now, I don't know if he did anything to my brother. And going back to the beginning of our conversation, you would say how depressed he looked to you. And
Yes.
he wasn't quite the normal teenage boy or, little boy.
Communication, his social skills was very odd. Very, I
Yes.
mean, just questionable.
Yes. Yes. So I can't speak for him and what happened to him, but I believe deep in my heart something did happen to him.
Mm,
Um, but at the time it was happening to me, I was too young to pay attention to anyone but me and what was going on with my body. This guy, I remember it vividly because I don't even know where my mom met this man, but she brought him home one day, and the only thing I remember is him giving me and my brother a stick of double mint gum, like it was like a balloon or something. He was like, "Oh,
uh-huh.
take this," and we took it. And as kids, you eat the gum and you're happy. But eventually, he started to become physically abusive towards my mother.
Okay.
I remember her always having to call the police, always having to kick him out, have him put out, but he will always return. And when he
Mm-hmm.
returned, he started to target me. Um, and I remember sitting in the tub. I was like 7, 8 years old, sitting in the tub, and my vagina would itch like crazy. And I
Mm-hmm.
would dig at it, dig at it, dig at it until the whole tub would be like pink with blood. And um, it would just bother me all the time. Of course, it was being tampered with. But I would tell my mom, things are happening. And I don't know if you remember, Shirley, when DIFUS used to come to the school. I don't know if you ever had them
No, because we didn't
approach
go to.
you.
No, wait.
We
Dyfus
were
used to come to your school?
it was always like these case managers. I don't know if somebody seen me because
No, because I
I
never
was
went
so
to the Trenton
young.
school.
No, you didn't. So I don't know how these two people, they were two white professionals, a woman and a man, took me to a room. I was in school.
Uh huh.
And around this time, all the abuse was happening. Somebody may have called. I don't know because I was a child. So I don't know. So I go to this room with these two adults I don't know. And they're like asking me all these questions about my
Mm-hmm.
household, what's going on in the house. Am I happy? Am I being abused? And I told the truth. Um,
You told them about the
mhm,
boyfriend.
mhm.
Now, before you told Dyfus, did you tell your mother?
No, I
You
was
never
too
told her.
afraid.
You were too, because this is the fear that she
That
instilled in you that you
her
could
and
not,
him, her
her and
and
him,
him. Hmm.
and you couldn't even speak to your own mother about what was happening. And
Hmm.
this is why this is a serious waking call. Now, mind you, I've known Tabitha for years. I'm 38 and a half. We're pretty much the same age. I forget who's older, but it's by
Hmm.
months. This is the first time I'm hearing this story. So you really truly never know what someone's going through in their home, your own friends, who you're dealing with. And this is why you really have to be mindful and understanding of what your friends are going through because you don't know what they're going through and what they're choosing to share and not to share. Because at that point in time, of course, everything is just not your business. How the fuck was this girl
Hmm.
at 16 and 17 when we're friends supposed to tell me, hey, I was molested? And what is
Right.
my little young mind supposed to take that as? How am I supposed to consult her? What good advice
Hmm.
am I really truly going to give to her? Um,
Exactly.
but,
Yes.
you know, parents, we really have to realize that at one point in time, we were all kids. At one point in time, we were six, we were seven, we were eight, we were nine, we were 10 years old. You didn't just come out of your mother's wound an adult. So when you have children and you start to create this superior and inferior situation,
It's
you really need
unhealthy.
to stop and think that is just not healthy. As you hear this person telling you she's being molested, but at no point in time she could not go speak to her mother. Why? Because of the fear. And this is not good fear. We're not talking about respect. Like, I can honestly say my children have respect for me. I don't want you to fear me. That's totally two
Mm.
different things. Respect and fear do not go hand in hand. I want you to respect me. I do not want you to fear me. I want you to be comfortable around me at all times and come and speak to me about anything your heart desires. Because if you can't even speak to me as your own mother, what you gonna do?
Who
You
do
know what
you
you gonna
go
do?
to?
You gonna go to the next person that makes you feel more comfortable to speak to because you're scared to talk to me.
Yes.
And this is why I talk about this shit. This is why I do this shit. So people can realize, like, stop that superior and inferior thing with your children. These are people that God have blessed you with for you to guide them for the first 18 years of their life.
That's right.
Let them out into the world to try to make the best decisions that they can possibly make. They're human. They're going to make mistakes, especially their children. I mean, Tabitha, you already know how repetitive we have to be with children.
Yes. Yes.
So, okay, continue now. So now Dyfus comes to the school. You tell him everything. What happens after that?
I get the worst whooping of my life that night. And
Are
I
you fucking
was
kid? Wait, hold the fuck up. She
I wa-
whooped your ass
and
after
told me
you done divulged to this person
mhm,
that you were sexually abused.
yes. Because I believe they called the house after that meeting they had with me in the school, and they called her job that same day. And like I said, I don't know who brought them to the school. I don't know if a teacher saw how I was behaving or just was like noticing my moves. You know how a child may behave if something is going on.
Mm-hmm.
But these people questioned me. I told them the absolute truth, and my mom punished me and told me that I was lying.
Because
Um,
she believed the boyfriend and not her daughter.
yes, she wanted that man more than she wanted to believe me. Let me just say
I
that.
mean, I don't really have words for it. And for those of you who are listening, if you feel otherwise and you feel this beating is justified, I'm interested in hearing what your justification is because we all know people have different opinions about things. But I just, it's just sad because, Tab, I didn't know you was going through this.
Yeah, yeah.
Granted, you were young, but Project Smile, how old were we when we started
Oh
Project Smile?
man,
Like
Project
13,
Smile.
14? Because
Yes, we
Upper
were
Bound was high
young.
school. Project
Yes,
Smile
I
was
think
like
like 10,
12.
maybe 11. Yeah, like
When we started Project
yeah,
Smile,
we were young. It
we
was
were young.
actually, I don't know if he was still in our lives at that time. I want to say maybe at the beginning, but I can't really quite remember, with the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of Project Smile. But that was my escape. That was my
Oh, Project Smile and
safe
Upper Bound
place,
was your
just
escape.
in school. Was I hated going home. I hated. I ran away. I do remember one time vividly running away.
Really?
Yes,
So
I
before
ran
you go
away
into the running away, how long did this continue with this man?
for
Dyfus comes, your
years.
mom whoop your ass.
Hmm.
And then I'm assuming after
To the
this, the
point
shit still continued.
where I started believing my mom. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe it was made up.
And he still continued to molest you?
Hmm. I
She
remember.
was never
Uh,
home, Tabitha.
no, when it was me and my brother knows, and I think that's
He
what
never stepped
fuels.
up as the big brother.
But he was only 2 years older, so he's 11. This man is like 40, 30 some years old. And I truly believe he was probably doing the same thing to my brother. I do. I can't confirm it, but I do. Um, and I remember one day my mom went to work. She left us with him. It was me and my brother. We were
Mm-hmm.
in my room playing with our toys, and this pedophile, this monster, came to our room door, and his robe was halfway open and file is hanging halfway out. So that's how I feel like maybe my brother was also part of the
Oh, your brother
abuse. We were
witnessed,
there.
you were
Yes.
there together when he just walked into the room.
Yes. With the robe wide open, and he asked me, "Do I want to come? Do I want to come to bed with them?" This was after he's been going to bed with me for numbers of times, and
How
this
old
was
were
the
you at this
first.
time? At this
We
time, this
were.
exact
Oh man.
period.
So this was. I think this was around 9, 10 years old.
Okay.
Because we met him, I want to say we met him at 7 years old, between 6 and 7. And finally, my mom broke up with him when I was about 11. So this was going on for the majority of their relationship. Yes. It's hard for me to even talk about it still to this day. It's my first time, other than, really close people.
Well, I appreciate you sharing this story on not just with me in a private room. This
Yeah.
is on air. So
I,
I
I feel
appreciate
like
you sharing
I
because
hope
other
I can
people
help
need
someone.
to hear this. Trust me,
Mm-hmm.
you are, you know, it's that woman who doesn't have the energy, the courage yet
Mm-hmm.
to speak up about it that's hearing your story and realizing like I need to do something. Ooh, the situation I'm in is wrong. You know, and I'm constantly hearing stories of how people change their negative into a positive. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, again, you and I have a close connection because from Project Smile up until our adulthood, I've known you, but I've
Mm-hmm.
never known this story.
Mm-hmm.
So now you told me at 7 years old you were in the tub, you kept scratching, scratching, scratching.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever tell your mother this? Like, did she
Mm-hmm.
ever go get you checked?
I don't remember her taking me to the doctors, and you know what? I remember telling my grandmother.
Okay.
My grandmother would help me. I don't know if this is
Soothe
appropriate,
because
but
no,
she would
anything's
put.
appropriate here because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've had a yeast infection. It's
Yes.
just one of those things that yeast infection, bacterial vaginosis,
Mm-hmm.
women go through things. These are things that
Yes.
need to be discussed. If you've
Mm-hmm.
ever had a yeast infection, that shit is fucking irritable,
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable, not good. I mean, just as bad as like a UTI when you feel like you got to pee, but you can't pee.
Right. Right.
A yeast infection, it's going to itch. It's going to itch until you
Yes.
take care of it. And you need medication. You need something to soothe that.
No, I
So
was
at
never
seven
taken.
years old, what did you do at school?
I would just deal with it. My grandmother taught me how to put Vaseline on it. Vaseline soothed it.
Vaseline.
Yes. She would soothe it with Vaseline. Yes. But
So I
I
guess
didn't,
over time it just went away.
over time, it just went away. It could have been a psychological thing that I was just hating that part of my body because it
Okay,
was
so I
being
see.
tampered
Okay.
with. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't really put myself back in that mindset why I was
Mm-hmm.
doing that, but I thought about it just actually a couple of days before we reconnected
Mm-hmm.
online, and I'm like, why would I do that? It must have been a psychological
It
thing
must have been. That
because
would make
this
sense.
it was like if I didn't have this body part, this man would not be
Wouldn't
taking
touch
advantage
me.
of me. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, so now I see why you're like, she was so strict to the point of abuse as you go
Mhm.
into your story. I'm understanding why now. Now, this man, she finally makes a decision around 11 to leave this man. How is
Mhm.
life now after this?
Very hard with her. There were multiple lovers and friends of hers that came before she got saved. She's saved now. But before she got saved, she was a young mother, young 30s. You still have your needs as a woman. But even with
She wasn't
her,
that young of a mother. She
no,
really truly wasn't. She was a
no.
grown, mature woman. When I think of young
Mhm.
mother, I think of anything under 25
Yes,
is
yes.
young mother to me. I mean, we can put even now at 38, people come up to me, "Oh, you still young, lady. I'm about to be 40 in
For
less than 2 years. What you gonna call me young at 50? I mean, I feel young. I
Mhm,
feel good,
mhm.
but she was not a young mother. Young mother
Yes.
to me, in my eyes, is anything under 25. We were young mothers.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
Your mother had you in your 30s. She was a young woman, but she was
Mm-hmm.
not a young mother.
That's true. That's true. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
But
Okay. I mean,
the abuse I would say started more when this guy and all the lovers disappeared.
wait.
Because
More abuse continued after the lovers disappeared and she got saved?
from my mother to her, to us, to our her
So what
children.
was she doing now?
So I don't know. We used to get beat for everything. Me and my brother. So if the teacher called home, or if we didn't do our homework on time, or if we
Uh-huh.
got the answer wrong, she was very impatient at times with us. So I remember sitting up. I'll never forget one night she had me sitting up to like 4 o'clock in the morning on one math problem I couldn't get right. But she would not work it out with me. She would just yell at me and scream at me all night long.
You know what?
And
Now I realize, I'm sorry to interrupt. Now I realize when I listened to your story why we connected well. It seemed
mhm,
like spiritually some of the same
mhm,
situations we were going in our household. Now, one thing I will say, in my household I didn't experience any sexual abuse, but the strictness was there. My
mhm,
mother was a mean little wrench to me.
mhm,
Very mean little wrench to me. And when I hear you say about the math problem, I remember there was one night this woman kept me up about a math problem, would not help me, would not aid me in understanding. I even
wow.
got a beating because
Yes.
I wouldn't get the answer right.
Yes.
And then
You
afterwards,
have to go to
she,
school.
you got to go to school. And I remember her coming to me and trying to make it seem like, I do this because I want to help you and I want you to do better. And in my little young mind, I'm sitting here thinking, no, you're doing this because you fucking hate me. This is
Hate
why.
me. Hmm.
I don't know what else to think. Why
Yes.
would you treat me like this? What did I do that this is how you need to educate me and train me and teach me? And it's
Yes.
interesting to hear you say that. And it's,
Wow.
I'm Haitian, you're American.
Yes.
For the longest time, I used to think, oh, Caribbean people are just so strict, but it just goes to show no,
It's a
it's not the case. It's really not the case
yes.
because your mom, you're not a foreigner at all,
Mm-mm.
not from the islands. You're just,
Not immediately, anyways.
not immediately.
Right.
So, and look at the strictness that we both
Mm-hmm.
endured. That's probably one of the big reasons why we connected and didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now she's saved and she's giving you
It's
a hard
still the
time about this
same.
mad problem.
It's still
What?
the same to this day. But
She's still
yes,
the same till this day.
yes, yes,
Still the mean
yes.
mother that I remember.
Yes. She
Cause
is.
she just, your mom definitely, when I seen her and the small interactions I had with her, she just didn't look like you wanted to fuck with her and you wanted to say
Mm-mm.
anything wrong because she just and there was a part of me that's like, well, I don't want to tarnish my relationship with my friend and I don't want to be disrespectful, so I ain't gonna say shit.
Yes. Yes.
Because that is her mom. So I am not going to step out of lines. This is
Right.
her home. I'm not going to be disrespectful. And I was a little too opinionated at times.
Yes.
So I just had to stay in my lane. Because
Uh
there were times
huh.
your mom looked at me like, this one right here is
Uh
wild.
huh. Uh huh. Yes, I remember. I remember. And just going off of your your experience being in my mother's home is totally different from my experience in being in your mother's home. I just love being at your house. We will have so
That's
much
the
fun.
persona
Isn't
she
that
put outside
crazy?
of that. She's really nice. I love her.
Mhm.
But no, it wasn't always as joyful.
Okay, okay.
It wasn't
Now,
joyful.
to this day, has she changed or healed?
Our relationship has gotten better because of the children. Our
Okay.
relationship has gotten better because of the children. I think one of the reasons that there's a strain between my mother and I. So I came here when I was 4.5 years old. I was almost five. My mother left when I was 6 months old. My father left when I was 3 months old in Haiti. So my
Mm-hmm.
grandparents raised me for literally almost the first 5 years of my life. So when
Okay.
I came here, it was a very difficult transition for me. My brother's a lot closer with my parents than I am,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's different. There are some people that can easily adapt. It was not easy for me. I remember my aunt has told me these stories, and this is how I'm able to remember. So when I first came here, for the first year, it was very hard. I wouldn't allow her to dress me, and I did not address them as my parents. And I was very sad. I didn't want to be here. So imagine a 4.5-year-old with her parents, but she's not identifying these two people as her parents. So that
Wow.
alone is extreme trauma to take a child out of the environment that they were in. I
Yes.
seen my grandma and my grandpa as mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
They were the people I was with. We know the first few years of a child's life, that's when they're building connection.
Yes.
So at 4.5, you take me out of my situation, you bring me into the situation. Now you're telling me this is my mom and dad, this is where I'm going to live, and this is where I'm going to be.
Hmm.
So I'm sitting here. The first year was extremely hard, my aunt said. My mom had even told her own mother, my grandmom, that you made my child hate me. So it was just more like there was no understanding from anybody. I needed therapy at that age.
Yeah.
It's kind of like kidnapping, is the
Mm-hmm.
best way that I can explain my situation for people to really understand kidnapping within the family. You
Wow.
know, the adults assume that they were doing something positive, and this is what most people from other countries do: hold the child while the parents come, get situated, and then you try to bring the child back, but you don't realize
Mm-hmm.
how traumatic it
That
is.
is. Mm-hmm.
So I think that created the situation where, even till this day, I have a connection with my mother because, from what I was told, I know that's my mother. But interestingly enough, I don't always call her mom.
Hmm.
I just start a conversation.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. I mean, deep in my heart, I really truly identify as my grandmother, as my mother. I know
Mm-hmm.
my mother is my mom. I give her the respect that is deserved, and I know who she is. And when I'm speaking to someone, I will say that is my mom.
Mm-hmm.
But when I am speaking to her, you know how most people will be like, mom this, mom that?
Right.
Those
Mm-hmm.
were words that were never able to freely flow out of my mouth. So when I start conversation with them, I
Mm-hmm.
just start talking. I don't
Okay.
say mom and dad.
Okay. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're
Because,
welcome. I
you
mean,
know, go ahead.
most people don't know. I don't share it, but on this podcast, they know.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can relate in a number of ways
We
because
can.
with my mom being gone, along with the family members and the friends and that looked after us. I always, and I just thought this thought today. I reconnected with my dad's side of the family last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I always wonder, why didn't she send us with them? But I kind of get the sense of it and her perspective because she was divorced at the time she was, dropping me and my brother off when she was going to active duty. So she had ill feelings towards that side of our family. But I always wonder, why couldn't we go there?
To
Why are
your dad.
you?
Do you guys have the same father?
Yes, me and my brother
How
have the
long was
same
she
father.
married?
Not very long to my father. From what she told us, it was an abusive relationship. He was not faithful to her at all times. So she couldn't withstand that and left. And she went through a deep depression when he and her separated. And then that's when she entered into active duty. And
Gotcha.
so it was
And
shortly after we were born, like, yeah, two
shortly after,
years.
so she wasn't married for a long time.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. So your mom has her own triggers and traumas that she's dealing
Yes.
with and has probably truly never addressed in a healthy way,
No.
and ended up taking it out on the kids, and not just
Mm-hmm.
you mainly. It seems
Be-
like you endured a lot.
I look a lot like my father. I'm his twin. My brother
Ah,
looks like my mother.
yes, I will agree
Um,
to him looking like your mother.
yes. So a lot of people would say, "You don't look anything like your mom to
You don't.
me." Yes, I'm
You don't
darker.
look like your mom.
Yeah.
You're
So
just
I
different.
just yes. So even at one time, I even played with the thought maybe I was adopted, but family members confirmed I wasn't, to my
You weren't.
dismay. But she always treated me different. I can
Okay.
say that from my brother. She always treated me different.
And she always reminded you of what your brother, his accomplishments. Like
Hmm.
she was comparing her own children. Like you know how children, parents, a lot of times will do that. Johnny up the street is doing this, and this.
Yes.
Uh, so many wrongs. I've heard that a lot in my house, especially we were
Hmm.
the church going family. So I
Hmm.
always used to hear about what the church girls were doing. And I needed to do what the church girls were doing. Fuck the church girls.
Right. Like I'm
That's
me.
exactly how I
Right.
felt. I'm me.
Hmm.
I got tired of hearing that. But
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you, those things made me realize what I didn't want to do. To
Hmm.
this day, I'd never compare my children because I remember the resentful feeling it left me. So I never tell my kids what somebody else's child is doing because it's not a good way to feel because then that child's going to think, well, I
Hmm.
am me. I am not that person. Why are you telling me? I heard this all the time. So I get she compared you with your brother and why
Hmm.
it made you feel disgusting because it's like, I'm here, I'm talking to you, I'm me. Why are you telling me
Yes.
about what someone else is doing? That has nothing
Yes.
to do with me.
Yes.
So
And
now I wanted to go into a topic that you said in here we were going to discuss why do
okay.
mothers hold very unrealistic high expectations for their daughters and not their sons? And I
Hmm.
see now why that topic is of importance to you because of what you've experienced. And why do you
Yes.
feel though is that way? And you're a mother and you have a daughter and
Yes.
I'm a
Yes.
mother and I have a daughter, so I want to see what you say and I'll comment.
I feel that way because with all that I've done, it just was never enough. Never enough. I never heard "I'm proud of you" until maybe I want to say 2 years ago.
Mhm.
So I never heard "You're a good mother" until last year from my
Mhm.
mother. My daughter's 19.
Mhm.
Um, so just not hearing these encouraging things from her
Do
made
you
me
think it's
feel
because our parents probably did not hear a lot of positive reinforcement?
maybe yes. And with her upbringing, my grandmother was the same way, if not
Mm,
more stern with her than she
mm.
is with me. Yes. So it's a generational curse. That's what the term is now. And
Yes.
I have found myself slipping into some of my mother's ways in the past. And lately, I've been asking my daughter for forgiveness, even though my parenting is way different from my mother's parenting. There were some things that slipped through the cracks, with the disciplining and just, there was some comparison because she
Mm-hmm.
is the only child, and I would look at some of her other friends and say, "Well, wow, they're helping their mother with groceries. You're not helping me." It wasn't like major things,
I
but it
know
was like,
what you
"Can
mean.
you pick up a bag?" Or, but it may have, and I'm sure it caused some trauma with her. So I'm starting to kind of correct my steps now, especially knowing that there's another child coming into our household. And I don't want that child, my grandchild, it's a boy.
Oh, congrats,
Yes,
girl.
thank you. I don't want him coming up with the same trauma. It has to
Exactly. You
stop.
have to stop the curse.
Yes,
You have to stop the curse. And the good thing
yes.
is you're realizing the
Mm-hmm.
errors, the mistakes that you're making and you're correcting yourself. Do you know how many parents need to get into the habit of apologizing to their children when
I'm
they
still waiting
legitimately
for
do?
mine.
So, what?
I'm still waiting for
Girl,
mine.
that's not something that happens in my parents ain't doing that. But me,
Yes.
I have apologized, especially if I
Mhm.
have yelled or got upset, and I'll tell them like, I'm sorry. Like I don't I curse, but when it comes to my children, I don't curse at my children.
Right.
I don't curse at my children, and I don't say a curse word. If I say something like shit, those people will look at me, those little people will look at me like I just did something so wrong. But that's
Mhm.
because that's what I've instilled in them. Like they expect their mom to be a certain way.
Of
And when I
course.
in a certain way, like our mother does not curse at us. That's not something she does. I will get upset. I will voice myself. And I also try to tell them, you can be angry, you can be sad, you can be mad, but there's always a
Yes.
respectable way to voice your feelings. If you need to walk away, walk away. I'm stern with them, but I try not to be a raging lunatic. If I can't get my point across by maybe just taking my voice up a couple notches and you understanding that I'm serious, then
Mhm.
I'm doing something wrong. Because if
Mhm.
I constantly got to be a raging lunatic, yelling, hitting you, or being so angry towards you, I'm fucking up in my parenting.
Yes. And then it makes you look within. Like, wait, why am
Yes.
I acting like this?
Why am I so angry? Why can't I
Mhm.
talk to my children in a respectful way to get
Mhm.
them to do what I want them to do?
Mhm.
I'm the source of the problem, not my kids. Because
Mhm.
obviously I'm doing something wrong that I have to be yelling and screaming for them to react.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I get what you're saying, stopping that generational curse, but that's good, Tabitha, that
Yes.
you're realizing your faults and you're
Yes.
apologizing to your daughter because then that positive reinforcement she'll take to her child.
Yes. Yes.
So that's a definite good thing. Now, what are some other reasons why you feel as though parents are the way they are? Because you said about the negative talk that she gave you, and I was like,
Mhm.
probably because maybe she just never had positive reinforcement.
No.
Because I read something that said people naturally think negatively. You
Mm.
have
Mhm.
to make yourself speak positivity
We are
because
in
we're
a
naturally
constant
constantly thinking negative
battle.
about ourselves. So we're
Mhm.
putting it out into the universe. So thinking
Mhm.
positive is something that you have to like intentionally think, okay, I'm going to think positive today. I'm going to do positive. It's not
Yes.
something that comes naturally.
No. And I always wonder why, actually, I can't even say I always wonder why. Lately, in this last 2 years since the pandemic, I have really been working on healing my
Mm-hmm.
inner wounds. And I've
Mm-hmm.
taken on meditation, just a lot of prayer
Mm-hmm.
work. I try to tell my daughter, I even posted something because I read it on my newsfeed. If you had a friend that talked to you the way that you think about yourself, would you still be friends with that person? And when I
Girl.
read that, that is the day I was that day years old when I stopped thinking so negatively about myself. And I'm talking about this was
Mm-hmm.
just a couple weeks ago. Even though this
Yeah.
is a constant battle, why God put us on this planet to battle our own minds is
Girl, I
beyond
remember you
me.
talking
But
negatively about yourself when we
all
were
the
teenagers.
time, all
Like
the
this was
time.
consistent. And I remember when we
hmm
were young, you were doing this.
I had no self value. My mom had no self value. She didn't teach me how to be a positive person. I'm teaching my mom now, like when there
Mm-hmm.
are certain little slips through the cracks where she'll listen and she does take in some of the things that I say.
That's
Like you
good.
don't have to be so negative all the time. And
Yep.
she used to say, "Oh, I'm not being negative. I'm being realistic." That's not reality.
No.
It's not
No.
always going to be a bus coming to swipe you off the earth. And there can be a positive side to things.
Yes.
And I've been really working on that with my daughter because, like that generational curse was coming into fruition in the beginning stages of her life before I
Mm-hmm.
started, changing my ways and my frame of thinking. So yeah, it's a constant battle, but
It is a
prayer,
constant battle.
meditation,
Very important. Prayer
yes.
and meditation are very important. I'm still working on meditation. Meditation is difficult for me because my
Yeah,
mind is always wandering, and trying to silence your mind to meditate
hard.
is a difficult task for me. And I'm working
Hmm.
on that. Even people are like, even if you could do 5 minutes, start small. It's just hard.
And
And then
even
I
the
feel like girl, do you feel like the minute you silence your mind, then I'm
everything.
asleep?
Well, see, I go to sleep to the tunes. I go to
Oh, you
sleep
go
to
to sleep
different,
to the tunes. Okay.
yes. And YouTube has thousands upon
Oh,
thousands of
yes.
channels. And then they have the
Yes.
guided, like when you have trouble actually focusing, you can do the guided meditation to where it's like, relax your arms and close your eye, and imagine this. So
Mm-hmm.
that may help. That may help with
I'm
your.
gonna try. I mean, I've tried that. I do. I do have
Uh-huh.
some stuff I'll put in my ears to help me relax for the night, because even
Yeah.
doing that is good. I end up falling asleep, but actual
Hmm.
meditation and just
Hmm.
sitting there is hard, because
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, girl, what you got to do tomorrow? Did you put that in your calendar? As I'm sitting there in meditation when you're supposed to clear your mind, girl, I'm
Yes.
still working on that. It's a task I'm
Yeah.
working on, and it's difficult. I'm not going to say it's easy,
No,
but I'm
it's
trying,
not.
making baby steps. But
That's good.
meditation and prayer is
Yes.
good. And even therapy. I'm an advocate for
That's
therapy
where I
when
need
you
to go.
find a good therapist. I have
Hmm.
a therapist that both Khalif and I work with. Love them.
Okay.
They're like big brother, big sister, but a good therapist. I feel
Hmm.
like finding a good therapist is like connecting with a good friend. You ain't going to be friends with everybody because the connection is just not there. Same with therapy.
Hmm.
You may not connect with the first, second, third, fourth person you go to. It may be the fifth person you find. You finally be like, this is my person that I want to take the advice from. But I do believe in therapy once you find that good therapist. There's a lot of
Okay.
therapists out there. You just need to find the one that connects with you well.
Okay.
So, what advice do you have to offer to
Hmm.
parents, to mothers, and daughters? Before I say that, how do you feel right now, my friend, that your daughter, how old is your daughter?
She's 19.
She is pregnant at the same age you
Age.
got
Ooh,
pregnant with her. Now,
there
you
we go.
told us in the beginning that she shares a large
Almost.
portion of stuff with you. We get, everyone has their secrets. There are certain things you probably won't share with your parents. We all get
Yes.
that. I
Hmm.
understand. Did she tell you she was having sex?
She did not in the beginning. No.
She did not. So you found out, did you find out she was having sex when she came to you and told you she was pregnant?
No, I found
So you
out
had already known.
before from a family member she confided in.
Okay,
So
because she
that
just
family
felt
member called me and told me
and
more
told
about
you.
me, my daughter than I knew. So that's when I started looking at myself like, wait a minute, how
That's
some
one thing she couldn't tell you.
that is one thing she did not come to me and tell me. But
Okay. And
she,
how old were you when you lost your virginity, Tabitha?
I was 16.
I was 15. How old was your daughter?
I believe she was 16.
Okay. So within 16, 17, 18, 19, within 3 years of her losing her virginity, she gets pregnant. And I mean, I lost my virginity at 15, ended up getting pregnant at 17.
She was 17, she told me. She was 17
17.
when
Oh,
she
she's
lost her
present.
virginity. Yes, she's present. She's here.
Oh, okay.
She
We,
came
we
in
won't
our
be
room
able to
like, hold
see her.
up.
But wait, she had to come to correct you. So she listened to the whole conversation. Okay, we
Yes,
keep it
she
real
knew
here.
about this. I was very
Okay.
excited telling her about it.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay. Very good. So
Mhm.
she was 17 and then got pregnant
Mhm.
at 19. Now, how, as a mother, how does that feel? Because my kid, they're 13 and 14 now. Daughter's 14. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, and I'm one of those realist parents. And I talked to Khalif about it.
Mhm.
I said, Khalif, I lost my virginity at 15. We have a 14-year-old. Of course, he doesn't want to talk. I don't want to talk about this. Okay.
Mhm. Dads and their girls.
Dads
They
and their
don't even
girls,
want
they
to
don't want to talk about.
imagine that.
No, no, they don't.
Mhm.
They don't want to think about it. But the reality of it is, I
It's a
don't know when it's going to
reality.
happen. Now, my daughter, our relationship with our children is so different. I know for a fact she's not going to lose her virginity as early as I did. I don't know what age it's going to happen, but it's not going to be at 15 when I lost my virginity. our home is different and her whole mindset is different. But how do
Okay.
you feel, not that your daughter having sex, how do you feel that she's pregnant?
Now, this is a
From
good
one friend to
question.
another. Like, how does that
Yes.
make, I don't know how I would feel. You
Yes.
know what I'm gonna tell
Okay.
you before you answer?
Yes.
I've mentally prepared myself for this because I said, you know what, Shirley, it could possibly happen. So I haven't created this unrealistic thought in my head because this is
Yes.
what fucks people up when we
Yes.
create these imagines like, oh, it's never going to happen. No, I
No,
lost my
we never
virginity
know.
at 15. I got pregnant at 17, even though I did not keep that child. But
Hmm.
the reality of it is, it can happen to my own child. Not that I'm wishing it upon her, but I need to mentally prepare myself in case that happened. How did you approach the situation? What did you say? How did she tell you?
Okay, so the father is not around right now. He wants to
Mhm.
be, but unfortunately, because of certain events, he can't.
Mhm.
So when she met the father, her boyfriend at the time, and still, I wouldn't even hear from the girl. I'm like, where are you? You didn't come home. There was, there were times where she would stay out with girlfriends and she'll let me know, Mom, I'm staying at this one's house or I'm over here, just let you know, shoot me the address. So for a period of time, she's not doing this. And I'm like, no way you're at your friend's grandmother's house overnight. No, no, I'm not
Mhm.
believing that. So it turns out she was with this young man. And uh, when he was no longer around for just temporary, I can share it. He's incarcerated right now. But
Uh-huh.
the reason um, she told me when that happened because she was home more, she wasn't going out as much. And I was looking at her like, oh, you're in the house a lot. What's going on? I had no clue this girl was pregnant. Now I could
At the time
rewind.
she was
I had no
pregnant,
clue. Yes, she was pregnant.
and
So
she's
she knew.
petite.
She's very petite. She still to this day doesn't even look how far along she is. Um,
Okay.
but I had no idea. So when I'm asking her, is everything okay? She starts crying, crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? What's going on? And then that's when she shared with me, that her boyfriend was not around anymore and she was pregnant. Now,
Mm.
how I took the news is I don't know what switched in my mind, but I didn't see my daughter anymore. I saw me.
Cuz
And
that
when I
was you at
saw
19.
me, yes, all I did was embrace her. I just held her close and I let her cry. And I
Mhm.
just held her tight and I told her, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. I'm here. And everything, I always feel like the universe happens and this happens for a reason. Um, I also had an abortion right after having her. I got pregnant again and I had an abortion
I
when
think I
she was
remember
like
you
six
telling me
months.
about that. Yep.
Yeah.
Way back when.
So I didn't want her to go through that. It was very traumatic, my abortion for me. And
Mhm.
to
It
that
is
day,
traumatic. It
I
is
never
traumatic.
got
It's
pregnant.
something you never forget.
No. And I never got pregnant afterwards. I should have been pregnant a whole lot of times after that. I think something
That's it.
happened. I think they sucked out more than baby, honestly. But
She said they sucked out more than baby.
so
Oh,
I
so are
asked
you
my
saying
daughter.
other times you tried and nothing?
Yeah, I should have
Okay.
been pregnant. Yeah. So I
Okay.
think there was something with that abortion that happened
Mhm.
with my reproduction system. So when my daughter told me she was pregnant, I asked her, I think I asked her what she wanted to do. And she said she wanted to keep it. And I told her, okay, I'm going to be here for you because
Okay.
I know how it feels. That's
Yeah.
very scary. It's
It's
very scary.
terrifying.
It
It
is.
is terrifying. And especially when the parent doesn't know how to take the news because
Hmm.
it's a scary situation. I don't think there
Yes.
is not one parent out here on the face of this earth that would glorify their teenage child getting
Mm-mm.
pregnant. Not
No.
one.
Nope.
Okay. But when the news does present itself,
Like, what are you going to
being
tell?
angry and yelling and screaming is really not the way to go. And, we always try to tell our children that they need to watch their emotions and control themselves and stuff. But once we become adults, we don't know how to do that anymore. We're
It's
raging fucking
true.
animals. And we talk to people how we want to talk to people. We say what we
Mm-hmm.
want to talk to say to people, and no one can tell us nothing. Now, can you
Yes.
imagine if our kids responded how we
Oh, she
act as
has.
adults?
Ooh.
We would be looking
Maybe.
like, no, they didn't. Yeah, ready to tear them up.
Yes, yes.
So I get
So
it. And I appreciate the advice because it's just,
yes.
I always keep it in the back burner saying, like, I don't want to create these unrealistic thoughts in my head because
And
I don't know what the next few years will hold. Now, granted, I asked my children, and I legitimately say I'm very open with my children. I said, y'all know I want grandkids.
mm-hmm.
My son looks at me and says, I don't want to have no kids because they take your money. Okay. My daughter was all about being a mother when she was younger. Now at 14, she's like, kids get on your nerves. I don't want any. So I don't know what she's going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. They
Yes.
both act like they ain't going to give me no grandkids. But I told them, look, when y'all get a little older, I want grandkids. I'm telling y'all now. Okay. Give me some grandkids. And they like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to have any kids. So I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see.
With
I
life, you never know what can
you don't.
happen. You
You don't
really
know what's going to
don't.
happen. I'm still loving if they don't give me any grandkids, but
Mm-hmm.
I hope I get some. I don't want
But
them too early,
yeah.
but I would like some.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
appreciate that advice. And,
You're
this has
welcome.
been a great conversation. I
Yes.
appreciate that for opening up to me after all these years I've known you. I've known this girl. Okay, so Upper Bound was
Huh.
14. We were in Project Smile. I don't know how many years I did. I
I
know I did
remember
1 year. I had
yeah.
to be, but look, girl,
I remember you coming to my grandma's house waking Kamaria up. I don't know if you
girl,
remember
I
that.
know. You used to get
Kamaria will be
mad.
sleeping. I'm like,
You
yo,
was
don't wake the
mad. You was
baby.
mad. You was so mad with me. You was like, "Oh my gosh, Shirley,
Yes.
stop. Don't do that." And you know what? Our interview today, look what I found, girl. And I know people can't see
What?
this. I
Carolyn
was like,
Stokes.
I know. I was
Yes.
like, isn't that crazy how I'm interviewing this girl today and her
Oh
little pink tails here
man.
in this picture? I'm
Yes.
like,
Yes.
time will just bring us back together. But
I'm
true
telling
friendship
you,
never dies.
it
Life
does not.
takes you apart, and that's okay. And you never know
Hmm.
what someone's going through. Because I remember the last time I saw you, you was taking her to school across the street
Hmm.
from that gas station, that new school they had built. And you was like, give me your number.
Okay.
And I gave you my number,
Yeah.
and I was like, the girl ain't
She
gonna
ain't gonna
call
call
me.
me on it.
The girl ain't gonna call me.
I'm
And she
horrible
know
with
where I
keeping in
live.
touch.
But the problem is you don't know what people go through. And we ain't
Yeah.
even tap into your divorce, but that's
Oh
okay.
man,
That's another
yeah.
story we could share for another
Yeah.
time, because I do remember you kind of getting married,
Hmm.
and then it was like poof, you disappeared.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's a whole
So
nother
that's a whole
conversation.
nother interview we could do later, and I'll bring you back because
Yes. I
sometimes I do. When
appreciate
people
that.
have more stories to tell, we all have a story. So
Yes.
as I end today, again, I want to thank you for being a
Thank
guest. And,
you.
just to give a word of advice, you never really truly know what your friends are going through. Always be mindful of their feelings. True friends never die. As you see here,
No.
Tabitha and I have been
Yes.
friends since kindergarten, Carolyn Stokes,
Yes.
and we have still remained good friends since. Life takes us apart, things happen, we separate for long periods of time, but when you reconnect with that good friend, you just catch up where you left off at. And as for parents, stop creating this superior and inferior situation with your children, and be mindful that at one point in time, you were a child and you have feelings just like your kids do. If you speaking to your children, you constantly have to yell and scream to get your point across, we really need to reevaluate that situation. I try to catch myself and not allow myself to scream. If I'm talking to them, they know when mom's being serious and they know when mom's playing. You might take your voice up a notch, and that's okay. But if you have to constantly be angry and physical and just so mad all the time, that's not a good way to be. Because think about if somebody was talking to you like that all the time, you wouldn't like it at all. Just remember, your kids are human just like you are. They're just little people. So I want to end. Thank you for listening. As always, love yourself, voice yourself, and be yourself. Until the next podcast, guys, have a great one. Thanks for tuning in to Femme Parler Podcast. If you want to continue the conversation or share your takeaways, I want to hear from you. Head on over to the website or join our Facebook community and comment your favorite part of the show or share your thoughts. I want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget to rate and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Chat with you next week.